look at a graffiti artist, they have the most freedom. They do whatever they want, whenever they want, wherever they want. And they don't do it for money. They don't do it, they don't wait for someone to say, okay, you can go do it now. They just do it on their own. That young guy who sees graffiti as a way for him to speak, a way for him to have a voice. We like to try and ignite that creative spark in a young person so that they'll constantly keep wanting more. They've got some kind of an emotional buzz, an emotional attachment to something that's happening, and it's ignited something in them, so they always want more. And they get on that path where they're looking for more creativity, and that really helps set them on a really, really solid path for their life.
When you think of graffiti, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it an act of vandalism or a public display of art? Artists reclaiming the landscape of our city through its walls. And though the art form might be attached to illegal activity, it's a way to inspire. This is the story of an organization that 15 years ago began using graffiti as a seed for change, and today is changing the lives of many young people in Winnipeg, giving them a voice and a reason to speak so they themselves can reclaim the world that they live in. My name's Ismaila Alfa. I'm a rapper from Winnipeg, and I'm gonna show you how young people in our troubled inner city are using urban arts to discover who they are. Much like graffiti, it all started with an unusual canvas.
Well, for me, it was mostly trains. You know, I used to call that the slideshow. And just wondering, you know, putting a little story in my mind to each piece about the young guy that did that. People would wake up in the morning, drive to work, and they would see this piece of art on a wall, and they wouldn't know how it got there or who did it or why it was there. I was working in the social service. I was working in justice and corrections, and I was a prison guard at Stony Mountain. I started there thinking I was going to change the world, but I soon realized that the system was much bigger than I was, that I was on the wrong end of the spectrum, of the range. I was more of a prevention guy. I really needed to change something. And one night on a midnight shift, I was sitting in the Southwest Tower at Stony Mountain, and I just started writing on the back of a Southwest Tower report. You know, you have your gun log, you have to check all your weapons, but I just took an empty sheet and started writing on the back of it. And I just got this idea for Graffiti Gallery.
Winnipeg's Graffiti Gallery is one of the coolest places in Winnipeg. With internationally acclaimed artist exhibits, it has put the city on the map worldwide. But its most valuable asset has always been a friendship.
Well, Steve put out a poster looking for graffiti artists. I just happened to be the first guy to call Steve, and first thing I asked him was, are you a cop? My first assumption was like, this is some kind of entrapment or something.
I immediately realized that how naive I was, right? Because here I was appreciating this art form, and I was so kind of engaged by it. The whole notion of it being illegal really didn't hit me until he said, why are you a cop?
But 15 years later, I'm still working with him. Steve had rented out a small garage out of Elmwood and basically just had a bunch of spray paint cans and let us paint a wall, and he wanted to see what we could do before he gave us canvases and stuff to paint on. So once we showed him, me and another friend, you know, painted the wall, and he decided that it's like, yeah, we could work with these dudes and then try and do something together. We did a few canvases. I brought a few more friends, had a little bit of a showing, and that's how it started.
Up until then, graffiti in the city had remained mostly underground. The gallery came along at a moment when youth in the city were hungry for creativity. But as they would discover, graffiti was just the tip of the iceberg, a part of a huge cultural revolution called hip-hop.
It was a thriving culture, right? In every sense of the word. It had its own language, its own fashion, its own music, and its own art. And so that's where the strength in this whole thing came from, was the hip-hop culture. Quite quickly, we assembled a group of 10 or 11 graffiti artists that were very active, that were very involved in the graffiti at that time, the subculture, and the hip-hop subculture. And it was from that original group that word of what we were doing spread.
The kids from Elmwood really wanted to do what the artists were doing, so they were jumping on the train and riding the trains like down the tracks, like over the bridge.
They would come after school, the artists would be working, and they would kind of be pestering the artists in a nice kind of way, and the artists kind of appreciated it, and they know the neighborhood, and they know that the kids, you know, to find something cool and fun to do was a really good, positive thing.
And like, it was like, couldn't believe that these kids wanted to be there that bad and like hang out and that sort of thing. So that's where when we got the idea to do some after-school programming.
I found out about the graffiti gallery back in '99. There was a breakdance event. I walked in. I was 19. I was like, this place is crazy. You know, like it's an amazing space where artists can come and like have a safe place to do their art.
Hip-hop culture was born out of a need from young people to express themselves. It was created by young people for young people. And it's traditionally formed by 4 roots, called the 4 elements of hip-hop: rapping, DJing, b-boying, and graffiti. These 4 elements became the pillars of the after-school programming at the Graffiti Gallery. After the seed was planted with graffiti, many young people found themselves in the program. Young people who have learned to use hip-hop culture to make themselves better. People like Majo, the breakdancer. Or Osani, the rapper. People like Raquel, the writer and rights activist. And Renee, the rebel behind a mask.
Studio 393 is a satellite program of graffiti art programming. Because of the gallery's location, a lot of our programming happens outside of the gallery space. This site specifically has a older aged bracket, 13 to 28 we program for. Being in the mall, it's a prime location. To provide a safe, comfortable place where young people can come and work on art and music and dance.
Well, it's basically like a crash course in hip-hop. When you come in the doors, you're able to touch on all the elements of hip-hop, and you've got mentors that are here. You know, you don't usually get that in a real-life setting, that you're able to have people that have been through it and done it as a career that are right there, and you don't have to pay for that service. So it's really great for kids to come out, and when the kids come, they blow us away every single time we do programming like this, because they're so open to trying new things, and that's all we ask, is that they come out and try. And not everybody's going to turn out to be a professional in whatever they attempt to, but it's great that they even come out and make the attempt.
Life is not logic, it's dark, it's not all lit, it's about what you have in your wallet. Them fat cats have 9 lives, dog I only got 1, so 1 shot's fine with me. There's no behind the scenes, what you get is what you see.
Just like you have a voice.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you didn't have a voice before?
Yeah. Like before I couldn't really like express my feelings, but now that I discovered rap, you know, it's like a way to let everything out, you know, in a beautiful way, like music, you know?
Yeah.
It's something non-destructive, you know, like most times I get mad or something, you know, I hit the wall. So, you know, but now it's good because whenever I get mad, I just like calm down and I start putting all my anger into rap, and you know, after then I can make something with it instead of just, you know, causing destruction and being up to no good and mischievous.
Yeah.
I was impressed by the talent sprouting at the studio. So I talked to one of its star pupils, Majo Barawid, Peg City B-boy.
You know, I'm wondering how entertaining or being on stage became part of your life in the first place.
It's a big part of my life right now because it's my stress reliever. Like, no matter what, like if I'm working, without it, I'm not happy.
Was it always like that back in the Philippines? Were you a performer still?
I was a performer, yeah, and with the crew, but not actually like a b-boy or not a breakdancer. I'm performing with the crew, which is like a hip-hop choreography and stuff like that.
Now, when it comes to career and future and those sorts of things, there's always at least one person in our life who's very concerned with that. For me, my mom and my dad. I'm guessing for you, your mom, who you moved here, is a very important part of your life. How does she feel about you pursuing this goal of being a dancer?
She's so proud of me right now, yeah.
You know what, when we were in the Philippines, I'm proud of my son because she has, even she's so small, he's so talented. But before, he loves singing. So that's he loves singing before, yeah. And then next to that is hip hop. Then after that is a break dancer already. So I'm proud of him very, very much. Especially when we saw him in the TV. Oh, you know what? My co-workers so proud. And then they post it in the Facebook and their wall. And then proud mom. So I'm happy for him.
So when you came here, I understand when you came to Winnipeg, you wanted to get right back to the Philippines. You didn't like it here very much. What was she telling you at that point in time? How was she talking to you then?
She's telling me if we're not gonna find our life in here, cause like that time, like I actually don't speak English at all. Like I'm like, oh yeah, maybe we should go back to the Philippines and like start over and find a job or, yeah.
Did she feel she wanted to leave as well at the time?
She wanted to, but actually got hired like from different places. Like me, I got hired like, from my other job, and she got hired too. So that made us think to stay, cause like why? We can help our relatives and families in the Philippines right now by sending money.
Right.
Like Majo, many new Canadian youth look for a safe place in the program, but so do inner city kids like Renee. In graffiti tradition, he chose to keep his identity a secret.
The world is our canvas. We can do whatever we want with it, right? We can paint it any way we want. The only way to get graffiti is like, you have to break all the rules. I guess you could say I was just seen it on the streets and I thought it was pretty cool, and I thought I could express myself that way. It gives me a different perspective on life. I see different things. Just paint whatever's on your mind. If art didn't exist, I'd say life would be pretty dull. I mean, we'd have no theme music as we're walking around. We'd have no creative mind to see something to make something that's never been seen. There would be nothing without creative people. The world is ours. That's what I write. If we were to make graffiti legal, and if everybody would just appreciate the little things in life, maybe graffiti wouldn't be so bad right now, and maybe we'd be paid to be put on their wall.
Some, like Renee, find refuge in the nature of graffiti, taking a gray wall and making it colorful. But some others do the same with words, painting in rhythm and humor. Such is the case with Osani Balkaran, rap artist.
My relationship with Osani is very good. I raised him to just kind of believe in himself and what he can accomplish, and talked a lot about his identity, because I knew that as he got older that those are the kind of things that he'd have to face as he grew up in an area where there's very few people that are like of his culture. And so when I raised Osani, I knew that was one thing I'd always have to be talking to him about, who he was, where he came from, and who he is as a Cree person, and also his dad's side of his culture too. His dad is Guyanese, and so he has a strong base of who he is.
A lot of my cousins were there, so they kind of backed me up sometimes when people would be asking me like, "Are you native?" and stuff, and my cousins would be like, "Yeah, he's 75%. He's Indian, Koreanese." You know, people were quick with their humor there. It was very different from being in the city.
He was very, very strong-willed, and I had to have a lot of patience raising him. But I think teaching him good skills, like how to control his anger, and as the years go on, we have a good relationship because it's very important for me to make sure that he always knows that what's his place in life.
Monica has learned how hip-hop has helped Osani connect with who he is. Youth in the program learn to be proud of who they are because of their own achievements. Meet Raquel, rapper, writer, and rights activist.
I think the best part about writing poetry is that I get to express my feelings through my writing. I have a voice, a really quiet one.
I never thought that it would become so apparent through one person like this, as I listen to you talk about your music and your culture, that hip-hop can educate people.
Yes, hip-hop can definitely educate people because I think it's the rhyme schemes, personally. Like, I can learn lyrics way faster than I can learn something that's written down in a book. I'd feel really excited. I wouldn't be too scared about university because I know that I can handle schoolwork, but to stand up in front of a crowd and perform my rap piece, that's different than sitting in a classroom. Can we have a beat?
You want a beat?
Yeah.
I can give you a beat.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
We're doing this.
Oh, we're doing this. You ready?
Okay. You see, our legacy is still on these streets, the way our children's broken heart beats. You see legacy in a drunk elder's eyes. You hear the legacy in our babies' cries. We hurt for our children without a voice. We hurt for our youth who saw no other choice. We hurt for the earth and the poison wind. This is not the end, this is where we begin.
Those are strong words, and I don't know why you wouldn't be confident to drop those anywhere. Trust me, they'll stand up against any MC out there. Thanks so much for this.
Thank you.
Hey, dude.
Yeah, my mom's right here. So yeah, I know. I don't really say something about my mom. I show it. I don't say it verbally. I'm like, Mom, I love you. I'm not that kind of person.
You know what?
I'm showing it.
Yes,
I always
it's not very showy, but you know what? During my operation, you know what? She's so very careful to me. He always texts me or Mom, just pray because we don't want to lose you. Because during my last operation in the Philippines, I'm 50-50.
I just always give my mom that some kind of words that can make her strong. Because that time she doesn't have any foundation.
Because
that time it's just you don't even know if you're gonna survive that operation or not. So.
Do you think that that b-boying helped you transition to Canadian life in any way?
It is, yeah. I've met lots of people, lots of people that actually recognizes me, cause oh, that guy's actually dancing. I saw him from this event, blah blah blah, like that. So, yeah, I like it, cause I feel oh yeah, those people can actually appreciate what I'm doing right now. So, and that motivates me more.
So when you first got here, you didn't know anybody, you didn't speak English that well, you wanted to go back home.
Yeah.
Now you have dance, you've obviously got crew members, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And obviously you speak English quite well. How are you feeling about Canada and Winnipeg now?
Oh, my life's just in here right now. I can communicate, and actually to me, breakdancing is just it's just your language. It's just all over the world. If you can't speak anything and you can only speak on your own language, they can't understand it. Not the other countries can understand your own language, but if you dance, they can understand you no matter what. Even though you're not speaking, once you hit the floor, and that's it. They can relate to you.
It was at my schools for English. It was poetry slam, And my one of my best friends, Omni, he said you should rap, and I was like, oh no, I don't think I could rap. And he's like, yeah, you should rap with me. And then when we made a rap, he taught me about punchlines and all that, and I thought, this applies directly to my humor, and yeah. Then it was about also being like an oddball too. I kept on reshaping it, reforming it for like 3 weeks. I kept on rereading it in my head. And I listened to a lot of other songs that were sort of about like therapy and pain, and I applied that right to my own rap too. The song doesn't need to sound angry to let off steam, nor does the beat. What helps me let off steam is at least just expressing it and telling someone and telling people in a way that's not actually telling, but describing it through song, actually.
I used to be the shy guy, the guy that always was quiet, but being able to express myself verbally and through my artistic ways, it's just, I guess it's changed my lifestyle by meeting new people in my life.
Instead of being this big scary guy where the whole neighborhood is scared of you, and that's all fear-based, we can have them here in our classes, and slowly, just like peeling the layers off an onion, you get to see who they truly are inside. And that big scary guy, you find out it's just an act. They don't have to pretend to be somebody they're not anymore. They can focus on their art form. They can focus on being an artist.
This mask hides who I really am. And if I hide who I really am, how is anybody gonna see me or know the real me? So,
like Renee, many young people in the program remove their masks and learn to see the value in themselves, inspired as they take ownership of the world that they live in. And that's so graffiti.
it definitely made me think more about what I wanted to do with my life. I'm keeping this legal, and I won't be in trouble, so that's the difference, I guess. I'd say my family's been through a lot of hurt, and they can't talk about it. They can't express themselves, they can't express feelings, because that makes them feel soft. It definitely made me think more about what I wanted to do with my life and how I'm going to do it. Help everybody in the world, help people deal with the world, and see it in different ways.
Well, what made me want to come here was I saw the graffiti art leaders. They came and they were dancing, like break dancing in the hallway at my school, and I was really excited because I really love like dancing, and I don't really know any places where I could go to dance. So then I came here and I learned to dance, but one day one of the teachers, like one of the mentors, came up and they were asking people if they wanted to write. So then I went and sat down with them and started writing. And because I used to write, they were really impressed with like my writing skills, and I just continued from that. And they got me into recording and then performing, and that was kind of Pat's idea.
I'm just listening to you speak about your culture and how well informed you are. You're educating me as we talk right here. What do you hope to do with your music?
Well, I hope to empower our youth a lot. Like, I'm starting to work at another program where I get to help young women become leaders in our community. And you can really tell, like, for me, that I became more confident with my speaking. And that's what I really want to do, is to empower our youth, empower our children. Well, my spirit name is Red Turtle Woman, and in our traditional language it's Miskwa Mikinakikwe, Indishnikas. That's my name is the Red Turtle Woman.
You know, we like to talk about freedom of expression, right? And we teach young artists, one of their responsibilities as an artist is to test the rules and test the boundaries that we as a society put in place, right? Just like a lawyer, it's their job to test the law. Well, it's an artist's job to test our freedoms.
15 years is a long time. Long enough for the program to see some of its youth grow into adulthood. That's the case with Bob Verwella, Programs Director at the Graffiti Art Gallery. So you teach dance, and as I understand it, you're into teaching more than just dance. You're using dance as essentially a vessel to pass on some greater values to these kids you work with. How do you do that?
First of all, it helps create an identity as an art form. And through creating an identity, they start building self-confidence and self-esteem to build that back up. And then they become passionate about something, anything. And that's really important too, because once you find something passionate about, you're willing to work hard for it. So you learn how to work hard, and then you find other people that have the same passion. You work as a team. So there's so many different things: morals, disciplines, commitment, conviction to what you love to do. You know, we molded our model to be that bridge between the older people and the younger people. You know.
We definitely believe very strongly that art is a tool for many different things, but our focus is art as a tool to help a person through their educational experience. We know, the studies show, that if you get your 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old involved in some kind of theater, visual arts, music, or dance, that it really helps to set a solid foundation for learning later on in life. And also we know that children who have had those opportunities and experiences, on average, they test about 16 to 18 percentage points higher than children who don't have those same opportunities. It has nothing to do with the neighborhood you're in. We use art as a tool to help a young person's education and to support a young person's education.
So, let me ask you again. When you think of graffiti, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Perhaps it is art that lets you be yourself. Something that gives you courage. Something that makes you feel at home. Or gives you the power to fight for what you believe in. So the next time you see an art piece on a wall in the street, take a moment. Remember, it's yours as well.